Because the bones in your skull fused prematurely, your brain doesn't have enough room to grow unless you go in and open up the skull. This is my daughter Danny. She has Apert syndrome. It's a disorder that affects a lot of different parts of her body. Will she be cognitively normal or typical? Right now her skull is fused, so her brain doesn't have any more room. The biggest thing that we can do for her to aid in that is by getting her cranial vault reconstruction, which is a surgery that they do where they open up the skull and allow the brain to have more room to grow. We'll have these distractors in her head for a month that we turn daily to slowly move her head back, and that will give her brain some more room to develop. Without that, her skull is already fused, so her brain would not have any more room, and it would actually be scrunched and cause intellectual disability. The other thing to look for with these kiddos is that they will have developmental delays. Because of surgeries that they have, their body is working hard on recovery all the time, and so not really focusing in on developmental milestones as much.
Danny is living with a condition called Apert syndrome.
Hey Danny, who is this?
Mom, don't cry.
Well, will she be needing a helmet? No. We met with her plastic surgeon on Monday, and I asked him to more thoroughly go over the cuts in her skull, and he kind of went into more detail about what's going to happen. You see where it kind of shelves out right here? The back, the bottom part here is actually going to come out on its own after we're done distracting, and it's going to smooth out and round out. Also, if you can see in the center where it kind of dips down, I don't know if you can tell, her forehead will start to move back, and then this front part where it dips up is going to kind of lower and fill in that gap. When he takes the device out, it's actually not as big as I thought it was. If you could see right here, there's this like rod shape right there. That is the device. So all he needs to do is open up a few inches on the top and bottom of the device to take it out. So he doesn't have to reopen her entire, where her whole scar is. That's what I was worried about. We also had to start doing the distractions twice a day instead of once a day because they're starting to bother her a lot. It's getting really tight. It's starting to get uncomfortable. So when you first start turning, she kind of does a little, like she tenses up and then she starts crying. So we preemptively give her Tylenol, and we're splitting it up so that it's not all at once.
Her parents have to twist devices in her skull to help expand it for her brain.
I was told my daughter would die shortly after birth or would be stillborn, and she defied all odds, and we eventually found out that she has Apert syndrome. Apert syndrome is a disorder that falls under the umbrella of what's called craniosynostosis. With these conditions, you will see fused fingers, fused toes, the facial differences, the bulging eyes, maybe a flatter nose. The bones in the skull also fuse prematurely. This genetic mutation can be passed down from the parents. We happen to have some genetic testing done, and that showed that we did not pass this down to Danny. It is a mutation that is brand new to her. There is a wide range in severity with this condition. Danny happens to have the more mild type. With the more severe type, you would see things like cleft palate. They could have heart problems, kidney problems, problems breathing on their own, problems feeding on their own, so they'd have like a feeding tube and a trach. A lot of these kids can also have vision problems and hearing loss.
While Danny's case is mild, it will still be present for the rest of her life.
What's amazing is that medicine has come such a long way with these conditions, and kids are able to get surgical intervention that also helps aesthetically. Also, because of these surgeries, a lot of these kids have the chance to have normal intelligence. Because what happens is, because the bones in your skull fused prematurely, your brain doesn't have enough room to grow unless you go in and open up the skull. This surgery typically is done within the first year of life in order to give the kid the best chance to have a normal intellect. So while there is a great likelihood that these children will be intellectually typical, there is some developmental delays that also typically happen. Some children take longer to walk, some children take longer to learn how to speak, and that is where therapies come in. There are a wide range of different therapies available to these children, and it is incredible the work that they do for them. The differences that makes in their lives and the developmental delays that they're expected to have, it's just amazing.
Danny's mum is now spreading awareness of the condition online.
Apert syndrome is pretty rare. There's about 50 cases in the US every year. So that's about 1 in every 50,000 to 80,000 babies a year are born with this. They have pretty typical life expectancies into the 70s. I mean, depending on the severity, of course, of their condition, they could live to have a very typical life expectancy. And then as far as quality of life goes, I think that really can be impacted by how they're raised, and then the people that are around them, the environment around them. These kids, some of them grow up and they get married and they have kids and they're involved in things. I know one lady that I've been connected with. She's beloved in her community. She's very involved. They can have very typical lives. Now, they very likely are going to go through some emotional difficulty, and growing up, you know, kids are just mean. People say things, people stare, people are uncomfortable. And I think that really stems from a place of they're just ignorant to what is going on with this person. They don't know how to act. They don't want to be disrespectful. I mean, sometimes people just are disrespectful, but I think a lot of times people just don't know how to act, and so they just avoid rather than do anything at all. That's why I think it's so important to talk about it, and that's why I want to start making these videos about Danny and her life and her condition, because the more you see it, the more used to it you are, and it's not going to be such a scary topic anymore.
We are so glad to hear that Danny is getting the treatment she needs to help with her condition. In the comments, people had nothing but words of love for Danny and her mum, with one person saying, "You are an amazing advocate and I love all the information you include. She is beautiful and you're an amazing mama." While others shared their experiences, saying, "My younger sister has Apert syndrome. She is now 35 and lives a very full life." As always, thank you for watching Happiest. If you liked this video, then please be sure to follow our other social pages for more videos like this. And of course, if you have any of your own videos that you would like to share with us, be sure to send them in.